I'm throwing it out there, plain and simply, we need more Android makers taking genuine, impactful risks, not just for the sake of it, but to truly try at least push the envelope. But before then, if you're new around here, like and subscribe to the channel. We'd really love to have you as part of a growing community of like-minded enthusiasts, casual fans, and regular folk. Just hit that subscribe button, you really help me out more than you know. Cheers. So the context of this entire video is the Nothing Phone 3. I think it is a prime example of the conundrum I mentioned at the start of this video. For years, I think the rallying cry from a lot of you out there, hardcore tech fans specifically, and maybe to a lesser extent casual consumers alike, has been for something different. Phones haven't changed too drastically over the past few years, and we want something, or potentially you want something, that doesn't just ape the status quo. So when Nothing comes along with its transparent designs, its unique Glyph interface, and a commitment to software that I think feels distinctly, well, Nothing, you'd think that would be universally lauded, right? Well, things are a little bit more murky in that department, and I think the Phone 3 is specific proof that you can't necessarily please everyone, despite making something that I think should be worthy of some level of mass attention for at least trying something new. While there's certainly a passionate fan base, the broader narrative often pivots in this space. People want innovation, which is exactly what I do think those brands should do. However, when a company like Nothing pushes for a distinctive design or even a distinctive approach and tries to differentiate themselves through aesthetics or maybe necessarily the user experience, for some reason a lot of you out there still find a reason to grumble. Let's be real for a second here and put some cards on the table. I think when we look at the actual picture, the Nothing Phone 3 at its core is really good. I think if you're someone that often uses a Pixel, like I do, you'll almost find this to be one of the ideal alternatives for you to go and pick up. I'm going to start with some of the hardware here because I do think there are some things we need to talk about. Specifically, let's go ahead and discuss the battery for a moment, because I think this is the most consistent thing about the Phone 3 in my experience. I'm not sure it quite surpasses the S25 Ultra on that phone's best days, but it's arguably more consistent across the board. Nothing OS 3.5, I think it's one of the most interesting and detailed-orient takes on Android that you can get. It had lots of nice new visual touches, lots of nice quality of life additions, and I think in fact it could be one of the best of the bunch out there right now. I'm genuinely excited to see what Android 16 brings to the table with Nothing OS 4.0, which is hopefully going to be in the next few months. The performance is better than my Pixel 9 Pro XL, like noticeably so. It's snappy, it's clean, it's familiar, but it's different at the same time, which I actually quite like. My only real gripe with the Nothing Phone 3 is a significant one for many people weighing up their options in this specifically crowded market. It's a little bit overpriced for what's actually packed inside. This isn't to say it's not worth the money for its best bits, but the price point sometimes clashes with the internal specifications, leading to that familiar murmur of discontent you've probably seen online, and maybe those of us reviewing these devices tend to push out to you. I think it strikes at the heart of my argument here and a testament to the challenge of being different in a market obsessed with the spec sheets and those price points to go with them. I'm asking a broader question here. Do you think downgrading marginally in most but not all areas is enough of a reason to complain? I think yes, but at the same time, do you lose out drastically? I'd say probably not. Does the Nothing Phone 3 feel noticeably less polished than a Pixel? I'd have to say, it is a resounding no. I'm going to coin this now. I think the Phone 3 is basically like a Poco phone for Pixel fans out there. That's probably basically all you need to know if you're aware of the Poco phone series. So I initially started out thinking about this as a flat review of the Phone 3. Instead, it had me thinking more broadly about the entire space and the context of this specific phone launch at this specific point in time. I think it's easy to throw around the word gimmick when a company tries to do something new or try something a little bit more out there. And while I will say the Glyph Matrix little LED section is a prime example of that in action, is this a useful addition? I'm not entirely sure, I have to say. Is it unique? Well, it's certainly unique in the sea of samey smartphones, and that's not discounting the design choices as well. It's not something we're used to seeing, but it could lead to something else that we eventually see more widely, providing it takes off. I think it's fine to be skeptical because the industry doesn't always evolve in ways that we expect. Innovation comes rapidly, then it slows right down and everyone tends to fall in line, which is part of the problem. Take for example Samsung. Make no mistake, the company is still the undisputed king of the Android hill, especially regarding and talking about flagship devices. The Galaxy S25 Ultra, for instance, I do think is a monumental achievement in every single area, an incredible device, there is absolutely no doubt about it. As an entire package from back to front, display to cameras, it really is fantastic. It's one of my favourite phones of the past few years. But I'm asking the question, where's the risk? Where is the genuine innovation beyond minor iterative hardware revisions? Honestly, it feels like they're excelling despite playing it safe with the physical stuff. I've said as much in my long-term review, so go check that out here on the channel if you haven't already. I think each year when we talk about Samsung Ultra phones, they get a bit faster, they get a bit more refined, but it's rarely a leap these days. It's a series of careful, calculated steps, and while that does deliver consistent excellence, I think it doesn't exactly set the world on fire or push the industry forward in terms of design or truly novel experiences, specifically when we talk about the hardware. The thing I think that tech as an industry is supposed to do and supposed to offer us, instead, the risks here, if you can even call them that in the grand scheme of things, are being taken in other areas that can evolve potentially faster, or at least from an established brand like Samsung. Things like the software, albeit on a, I would say, much smaller, safer scale. One UI 8, that adds a slew of visual changes and functional refinements. These aren't just random tweaks dreamt up in a design lab though. They're the direct result of common problems and complaints users have been voicing for years. Think about it. Interface inconsistencies, performance hiccups, or features that simply didn't make sense. Basically, Samsung, to their credit, is listening to those, which is good as they're addressing user feedback and refining One UI experiences to make it better for people using these phones. I think refining is not the same though as redefining. It's more like patching potholes, not building a new road and a new direction, as it were. So is there a happy medium? Absolutely, I genuinely think that there is. We need brands to listen to consumers, understand their pain points, acknowledge the desire for something fresh and exciting, and then still potentially take those necessary and bold risks. Risks that might not necessarily pay off immediately, risks that might alienate a few of you out there, but risks that ultimately push the entire Android ecosystem forward. Because I do think that's how we get Android phones that don't just work well, phones that don't just offer incremental upgrades, but phones that genuinely wow us, potentially inspire you to go out and pick one up, and make us excited about the future of mobile technology again, as it does feel a little bit staid over the past few years. That said, we do have lots of great choices out there. I'm almost always excited anyway, that's just my job here on the channel. I think at this point in time, it's almost a dead cert that if things don't change, we'll continue to potentially have this conversation year after year, whatever that happens to be. Now, let me just quickly go back to the Phone 3 for a second, because that's where we all started this thing. I think most of the fallout with this being sold is probably from it being classed as a flagship device. To be honest, I do think this term is almost meaningless or has lost a lot of meaning, at least at this stage. Yes, it is the best phone in Nothing's lineup. It is technically a flagship phone from Nothing, but I think many of you out there misinterpret this as meaning it is comparable to other flagship phones from the likes of Samsung, Apple, Google, and all those kind of things. You can sort of see as to what I'm alluding to here. Basically, it's confusion around the terminology used with the hardware. I like to take things in isolation personally first, because I think we can also work out the wider context. In a silo, I do think the Phone 3 is a good phone experience, or at least as good a phone experience as many other modern phones out there. In fact, I'd say in some areas, more so. However, when we start to take into account other phones, it maybe isn't quite as good in every, or at least quite as good from every single angle. There is a lot of pressure put on the design. Despite the protestations, I do think Glyph Matrix is, yeah, it is a gimmick. Plain and simple, it's something you probably won't even think about after taking this out of the box. I do applaud the risk though. It's polarizing almost on purpose in some ways. You have to stand out in this game. That is an absolute given. I think the Phone 1 and the Phone 2 did that. They were fine. The Phone 3 is different though, as it's basically good in almost all areas. OnePlus wasn't able to say the same after 3 mainline releases when it first started as an offshoot of another company, that is. But if it means that we get more off-the-wall designs from this company and things that you've never seen before on a phone, at least according to the internet, you're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But I'm totally here for it. And I think the Phone 3 is a really, really good product. And it just reminds me that I want to see more phones take more risks and we get better products as a result of it. Let me know what you think though. Do you think phones like this should exist? Is there enough space in the market for them? Or do you just want a plain little box that does all of the things with exponential battery life, amazing cameras, all that kind of jazz? Let me know what you think down in the comment sections below. Thanks for listening to me ramble about something I'm a little bit passionate about, I have to say about that. So yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers, and I will speak to you later.